It's been a while since I've gone live, so I thought I'd jump back on this morning and share some thoughts I'm having. Um, I want to talk a bit about tunneling. It's a new concept to me, and I think it's something that we need to think about a little more deeply. Um, Often we find that we are constantly pushing forward, forward, and a lot of times we don't think about where we actually want to go or what the destination is. I think you see it in a lot of situations, and you definitely see it in um, our current society because we're a very reactive society. That isn't always a bad thing, but it's never going to get you to an actual destination per se. It's going to continue to reinforce the things that we experience on a day to day basis. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. Um, but I think we're a society of tunnelers. And what I mean by tunneling is that, you know, instead of kind of going further upstream to solve a problem, you kind of double down on a deadline. You look at a deadline and you think, okay, I'm gonna redouble my efforts, and I'm gonna make sure that I fix a problem, and I'm gonna do what I can to meet this deadline and make sure that the problem is solved. But what you're not realizing is that that problem was something that didn't need to be there in the first place. So you end up doubling down on what you believe to be a solution, but ultimately it's not. It's just kind of exacerbating the same situation. And you might achieve something, and you might find yourself in a situation where you had a success, but you haven't solved the root problem. And I think that's where we go wrong. We have to think about how do we better avoid those problems ever happening in the first place. Um, that's kind of where I'm coming from when I talk about tunneling. I think you see it. I heard a story. I'm reading a book called Upstream, and that's where I'm getting some of these ideas from. One of the anecdotes in that story was about nurses in a maternity ward, um, and babies who had tags. Who those tags were used to keep track of these infants that were born, and it turned out that the tags were falling off the babies. So they didn't have, and these tracking devices cost about $100 a piece. So, you know, one was found in a bassinet, another was found in another spot. People found them and put them back on the babies so that they could keep track, but they ran the risk of confusing whose baby was whose because of this. So ultimately, you know, the nurses were able to solve the problem. And it's like, obviously the nurses have all sorts of stuff going on, so they need to act quickly. But in fact, if someone had looked and said, okay, why aren't these staying on the babies? What's going on with the system? They might have been able to better prevent the problem from ever occurring in the first place. It's kind of like, if we run into a situation where maybe we're short on money, and you have to pay for something before you have a paycheck. Well, if you end up going to a payday loan situation to get that money, suddenly you're going deeper into a tunnel. You may not get out of it. A lot of people are in that situation. They might be behind. It happens with money. I mean, money is fuel. If we don't have enough fuel, we can't really become what we need to become. So money can function in that way. But if you're short on it, suddenly the choices you need to make become survival choices. You're further down in the hierarchy of needs, and you start tunneling because maybe you want to pay for your kids' guitar lessons or sporting events, something that is valuable to you, but you make trade offs in order to cover for that. That's not a good situation to be in. And you have to find a way to get further upstream so that doesn't happen. But unfortunately, we fall into these situations where we end up reacting, and the reaction may solve the problem for the time being, and you may even be rewarded for that. You're going to get a good job. You met the deadline. We were behind on these things, and you brought us forward and you got us over the finish line. Well, that's great, and that gets approved, and that gets elevated and shown to be a good thing. But you shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. So that's a bit of the idea of what tunneling is. And I think we end up, nations end up tunneling. We end up reacting to many things without getting at the root problems. And I think that's something that I think is important, understanding where those root problems come from and then how we can address them so that, again, you're further upstream and those problems were never an issue. Try and think in that way. Think further ahead. Think in such a way that, live a life where the problems never appeared in the first place. How do we get to that kind of mindset and that kind of thinking? I mean, I guess that's what I've been trying to do lately is how do I plan ahead? How do I be open to people? How do I build relationships? How do I help people see that this isn't just about reaction, and social media is about reaction? That's not going to get us there in the end. That's going to keep us in the status quo. And the status quo is often akin to objectivity. Objectivity is the ideology of the status quo. Think about that one. It's going to maintain how things are. And how things are never quite where we need to be. We always do need to be moving forward, but we need to be moving forward in such a way that we're not tunneling and just reacting. We need to be moving forward so that we can create a better situation where problems never happen and the problems were never an issue. Of course, if you have problems, you need to solve them, and you need to find ways to bring people together so that that can happen. But why not live in a world where the problem never existed? And part of that has to do with, if it's not directly affecting me and I can't see the scenario that might exist 10 years from now, we become the boiled frog. We become the frog that's being boiled, and we don't have enough stake in the game to really try and solve a situation. So that's what I'm thinking about. I wonder what you guys are thinking about these days. It's interesting times. It's a time that we need to reflect on things and really think through our purpose and our meaning, and why we're here and what we're doing and what kind of world we want to see. So I've been thinking about that, and I've been trying to do what I can to make a difference. But it starts with us. It starts with each of us and having that space to listen quietly, observe, reflect, think, and then act properly. And try to understand where people are coming from, even if sometimes you feel like, man, that's tough to swallow. Someone had something that gave them an idea as to why they might think that way. And we can get into all sorts of reasons how and why, but it's reality. So how do you kind of meet that person where they are, or that idea where it is, and contribute to it and try to make it better? How can we be better as people and individuals? A lot of that has to do with understanding why we do the things we do. And that's something that I've been focused on this year. It's really understanding my why statement and how to find it, how to cultivate it, how to build it into your golden circle, which is really why, how, and what. If you start with why, as Simon Sinek says, you're going to have better clarity of what and how. I've been able to really take my why statement home and figure it out. I landed it finally, and it feels good. I know why I do what I do, how I do it, and what I'm doing. So, um, you know, I'm eager to help people understand that. I'm actually going to be having a little seminar on July 18th. It's kind of a free deal that I'm doing. I mean, I don't even want to say free. I mean, I'm just doing it to help people. But it'll be on July 18th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. It'll take a couple hours. Uh, you'll go through a process of meeting a stranger and sharing your stories and really figuring out what's my why statement. What is my to something so that outcome statement? So that that can help you have the clarity you need to think about how you are effective in your life. Because if we can all get there, everyone's going to be helping each other and having more empathy and kind of seeing where people come from. And that's key to making the world a better place. So let me know your thoughts. I'm kind of a thoughtful guy. I think more than I talk. But when I talk, I try to have something important to say. So I think we should all try to live that way if we can. Think through what words mean and what our thoughts mean and how we want to express ourselves. Um, I'm going to shift gears here for just a couple minutes to finish up. I'm a cyclist. I'm a big fan of the Tour de France. It's actually happening this year virtually on Zwift, and I'm going to be watching it at 9 a.m. this morning. I'll probably have a watch party. First, the women will race, and then the men will race after that. It's about a 2 hour event. You can watch all of these pro cyclists all riding from their homes on their virtual trainers in this virtual world competing against each other. And it's really absolutely fascinating. It's such a 2020 type thing. When we think about the future, I feel like the future arrived back in 2010 when things just started having this multiplicity to them, when, it wasn't just one-on-one interaction, but our words could have and our actions could be multiplied across the world. And it's a scary thing, um, because of the divisiveness and the amplification of negative things, but it also amplifies the good and it augments our ability to interact with people and make an impact. So when you think about augmentation, um, it's not an either or. Our words can be multiplied and we can reach more people. And if you're spreading goodwill and trying to help people see what they can become, you're going to have a bigger impact. There's nothing better than a one-on-one interaction where people can read each other's communication signals. They can see their body language. They can understand what's happening in the room. But you're not going to have that opportunity as often, especially in a quarantined world. You're just not going to have that in-person interaction that allows you to truly read the room and understand where someone is coming from. You're going to have to be able to do it through a screen. And the screen doesn't have to be a barrier. It can open up doors to so many new people that you might never have interacted with. That's one of my biggest takeaways from the pandemic is the ability to go online into a webinar, into a session, and to have this multiplicity on your screen. I mean, I think it's really cool to have a screen full of a dozen people all listening and talking and interacting with each other. And maybe these are people that you've never met. Maybe they're people that you're meeting for the first time and you're sharing information about things that you all have in common. And to me, there's something really beautiful about that because our ability to reach out and touch someone has just been augmented and amplified way more than it ever was, you know. Um, and we have to lean into that. We don't want to lean into kind of the negative stuff. Obviously, that's got to be tamped down and, um, you know, given the space it needs to be aired out so that it can be deconstructed and thought through and we can grow from it. Um, but we've got to lean in on the positive experiences we can have with people that we maybe haven't spoken to in a long time, or new people that we've never met. You know, we all have something to say, we all have something to give. If we listen and allow other people to share that, what we provide is going to be manifested through other people. We're going to see the effectiveness of other people, and hopefully things that we've done or things that we've said or things that we've provided is going to allow them to, you know, improve. You're going to be able to see yourself in them. um, that's harmony. You know, that's the idea of bringing people together, people who we didn't know, building a network, building relationships, helping people find each other. Because there are all sorts of people out there doing things, work, but they may never connect. They may never find each other and realize that by collaborating and working together and sharing brain space, that they can be more effective. Um, so these are things I'm thinking about, and these are things that I think can all make us better human beings. And it's all about being human. We often forget that. We are human, and we have to accept our humanity and grow with it and become with it and study and build and become something that, you know, you may not see yet, but it's out there. And if you keep making this incremental improvement every day, you're going to get there. And you're going to get there kind of like a boiled frog moves toward destruction. It's going to be in the other direction. You're going to slowly gather the knowledge to compound and to become better. What you do today may pay off tomorrow, next week, in a month, in a year, in 10 years. And the impact you have on people maybe much younger than you is a qualitative return on investment. You might plant a seed in someone's mind when they're young, when they're a teenager in their 20s, that may strike them as profound, whereas to you it just seems routine. But it could be incredibly profound, and that person may not even speak up. But you might have planted a seed that is going to guide them on their journey into the future, and it's going to improve their life and improve their quality of life. And it's going to give them an opportunity to be something, you know, to make a contribution to society, to the community, to the economy, to all the things that make the world a better place. But I think it starts by respecting everyone, understanding where people are coming from, and having empathy. So I only wanted to talk for about 15 minutes, but I'm pushing 20. I'm happy to keep chatting if there's anything anyone wants to talk about. But we can also take it offline. You know, if you want to message me, or if there's anything I've said today that you find intriguing or worthwhile. You know, I love connecting with people and chatting about effectiveness and design thinking and systems theory, cross-cultural communication. media, the role of media and digital media, um, and how it's affecting us and rewiring our brains, and how we can navigate through worlds like that. Oh, that's cool, Ryan. Yeah. Um, yeah, those were the good old days, man. I miss the bike shop. Well, I never left the bike shop. It's part of me. So think about the things that you've done in your life that have become a part of who you are. You might take them kind of lightly or not think much about them, but everything you do kind of maps your future and it gives you something to go from. When I sold bikes out of college in the early 90s at Village Bike Shop, I didn't appreciate how important that period of my life was, because what I learned on the sales floor, talking about something I loved, which was bicycles, I learned how to close a sale. That's not something to be taken lightly. If you know how to close a sale, you're going to be able to convince people about many different things. And I don't mean convince, you're going to inspire them. You shouldn't convince, you should inspire people. And if you understand the psychology of a deal and how to close a sale, you're going to be better off, because when someone is closing you, you're going to know the process and you're going to be able to interject and say, in some cases, I've said to a salesperson, okay, just close the sale already. I want it. Quit dancing around. Just ask me if I'd like to buy it and I'll say yes. Otherwise, if I'm not interested and someone is trying to close me, I know when to interject so that the deal's off. Think about that. What happens when you want to buy something? What's the psychology in your mind? What if you don't want to? Why is it that when a salesperson presents a product to you, overcomes your objections, and then stays quiet? We always knew that once you ask for the sale, whoever speaks first loses. It's one thing I learned. When you ask, would you like to buy this? You don't say a word as the salesperson. You keep your mouth shut. And 9 times out of 10, if that person isn't aware that the deal is being closed, you're going to say, yes, I want that, because they do. And you're helping them. You're helping them by giving them something that they didn't have before that they need. And everyone needs a bicycle, especially in these times. So I always felt good when I would close a sale, not because I sold a bicycle, but because I made a connection with someone. And we came to terms on a communal idea, something that we could each agree that was good, that I wanted to give to them and they wanted to receive. So if you start to think of sales like that, I need to receive something and there's someone who needs to give that to me. That can apply to everything in your life. Think about it. It's kind of an interesting idea. We're selling constantly, and the things that we buy, whether it's with money or if we buy into it because we see that it is something valuable to us, that's compounding. That's investing in ourselves. Again, compounding is such a key thing to remember. It's not about money. You're going to school, you're studying, because that's going to pay off down the road. It's compounding your opportunity. I guess that could work in the opposite way as well. If you're trying to compound something that has a bad effect on your life, that could take you in the other direction. So think about that one. Okay, any other thoughts from anyone? Drop them in the comments if you want me to speak to it. Otherwise, I'm gonna wrap up. I've gone longer than I planned to, but I guess I like to talk. At certain times, I like to be quiet too. I'm really an introvert, and I need my time alone. But when I like to talk, I really do like to talk and connect with people, because people matter. And interpersonal connections with people that we care about are important. And I care about all my friends, and I want to help people become the best versions of themselves. I want to help them show up to this new level of understanding and this new appreciation of who they are and what they bring and where they want to go. So that's 25 minutes. That's a lot. So I'm going to wrap up. Feel free to chime in the comments and reach out to me if you want to talk further about any of these topics. And maybe I'll start doing these again every Sunday because I do enjoy it. It gets us in the right headspace to start the day, and it gives us an opportunity to interact with each other. All right, enjoy your day. Maybe I'll see you at 9 o'clock watching the virtual Tour de France. I'm definitely looking forward to it.